Hi, this is Kathy Magnuson from Wildwood Learning, and we're here today with Thrive Talk number 3, which is R, and stands for relationships. I create a relationship with my team that's built on mutual respect. So, just a little bit about Wildwood Learning. At Wildwood Learning, I support and teach parents how to create personal education and career plans with their team. And I have a lot of practice in helping parents to communicate with their teens and practice myself because I have 4 teenagers. So, in a lot of our communication skills, we strive to have positive communication because with positive communication, we're going to build that mutual respect and understanding that's needed. Stephen Covey wrote a book called The 7 Habits for Highly Effective Families. In one of his habits, I believe it's number 5, says seek to understand, then to be understood. And I really believe that first we have to come from a place as parents to understand our teens and where they're coming from, and then have them understand where we are and where we're coming from. And that just develops through a lot of practice. When last week, Tuesday, I was at a local community college and I was honored to give a talk about communication through the generations. When I looked out on my audience, I had, I think, 4 different generations that were out there. The traditionalists, which is the oldest generation, and they really respect authority and prefer to communicate in the written word or in face-to-face communication. Then the other group was the baby boomers. Think about the people who grew up in the 60s. The baby boomers were known as workaholics, and they really liked to communicate person to person. At that time too, the telephone was really the tool to use for distant communication, whereas with traditionalists, it's a lot more letter writing that was done. The other generation I had out there was Generation X. That's the generation I'm from. And we are a generation that just is kind of skeptical of the status quo. We'll use email and are really familiar with email as a way of communicating, but really having face-to-face and talking on the phone is a way that we like to have that communication. We believe everybody is kind of on the same page as we are. The college kids that were out there in my audience was Generation Y, or the millennials. And Generation Y is really those kids that can multitask. I shouldn't say kids because they're young adults. Young adults that are multitask. They're very familiar by communicating electronically, using text. They want work that is really meaningful and want to be provided a lot of feedback on the work that they do. And then the generation that my high school kids are in as Generation Z, or they might be called the iGen. And in this generation, they're very connected to their devices. However, in my research, I found too that they really like face-to-face conversations, but they might not be very skilled at it. They are really more communication through visual means. Think Snapchat, YouTube, Facebook is probably more for older people now, but they're really the ones that like to communicate in those ways. And when we were in the group, in the discussion that we had at the presentation, we really talked about that divide between in technology when the smartphone came out compared to before the smartphone, and how much our communication has really changed over the generations. But even though we have a lot of change, we found a lot of similarities in our groups, in our generational groups. One is that they all have values, and the values are pretty similar. Value for honesty, family, connection, communication with each other. meaningful work. All of those were seem to be very much the same. They all want respect. They all want trustworthy leaders to follow. Nobody really liked change, even though they might say that some generations are more used to change than others. No one really likes it. We all wanted to learn, and we all want feedback provided to us as to how we're doing either on our work or in our life or in our relationships, and that feedback to be positive. So we talked about and did an activity where we came up with a lot of differences, but we seek to be understood in all of those similarities that we have. And it all comes down to that we all have needs. And all our human actions are motivated to get those needs met. Now we have needs like the need for air and water, need for shelter, food, touch. Those are all those needs that we have that are for survival. But we also have needs to thrive, to do well. Those would be things like connection, safety, honesty, recognition, community, love. Those are all things that as adults we need to survive. And, our teens do too, and their younger children. So, really figuring out what you need as a parent and communicating that in a positive way and helping our teens to figure out what they need and being able to communicate that in a positive way can help us build those relationships and that mutual respect that we all want and are striving for. So we talked about like fun. We all have the need for fun, but some people like to go out dancing, some like to play games, some would like to stay home and watch a football game, some people would like to read. We all have these different strategies to get our needs met. And when that happens, when our strategies come into conflict, that's when we start to have those arguments and allow us to maybe not understand each other. But when we can really say what our needs are and our strategy to get that met, we can come to a mutual agreement of how everyone can get their needs met. This takes a lot of practice and first really kind of identifying what you need as a parent. So I'd like to leave you with 3 actions that you can do. One action is to recognize what you need as a parent. There's that analogy of putting on the oxygen mask before you help anyone else. If you're on the airplane, they always say that at the beginning. Make sure you get yourself oxygen before you help anybody else. And that goes the same for you as a parent. Make sure you're getting your needs met, your needs of rest, your needs of community, creativity, whatever they may be. Identify them and then help find strategies where you can get those needs met. Once you're doing that, listen. Listen to your teen. Really listen to see what they're needing and help them figure that out. Be curious. I'm really curious that are you needing some safety? Is that it? Or are you needing some trust? Or maybe it's even just a hug to symbolize some love. Our teens need a lot of hugs. So make sure that you're really listening to your teen and that you're curious and wondering about what they might be needing. And then once you've figured out what their needs are and your needs are, come to agreement about those strategies that they can use to get their needs met. Help them along. When we're doing this, we're building connection, we're building understanding, we're allowing them to be heard, and for ourselves, we're building connection and understanding with ourselves. And as a parent, we need that. Those are the things. So just remember that all human actions are motivated by getting our needs met, and that we need to build those strong relationships built on this mutual respect and communication, because those are really key for our kids to talk to us about what they are wanting in their career and education plans, and really what their dreams and desires are for the future and for right now. So, next week we will be talking about I is for investigation. And if you want to find out more about the Thrive checklist and how you can help your team thrive in, and guide them throughout the year in thriving, please, below in the notes will be a link to the Thrive checklist that you can download and subscribe right here, down here at this button to my YouTube channel, where you'll receive the updates for our next YouTube show. And so also, I just want to mention, go to Wildwood Learning, www.wildwoodlearning.com, and there you'll be able to connect with me. I have a free 30-minute discovery call that is for parents to help them really build upon connecting with their team in how they can create a personal education and career plan. So have a great week, and I will see you back here next week, Thursday, for I is for investigation.